was 4, 5, I used to shout at my mum and scream in defiance if she called me a princess. Which is ironic, really, because fast forward quite a few years and now here I am, and I love ball gowns. I love big dresses. I love the way they move and take you with them. I wanted to create this channel because I felt I had a story to tell, and weirdly, very, very strangely, so much of it centres around this ball gown, or in the midst of an important moment, this ball gown appears. The video you're watching now was my 18th birthday, just the second year of which this tradition began, of wearing a ball gown for my birthday. But the first birthday I wore it was a very, very momentous day, because it was actually the first day I was free and came out of hospital. I had a meeting with the doctors and nurses, and they asked me if there was any particular date I would like to go home, and I said, well, I would quite like to go home for my birthday. And so the evening before my birthday, I arrived home at around 7, ready to wake up the next day, free. The first day of freedom I had tasted in months. But the night I passed was really horrendous, and about that I don't want to say much at all. Only that it was a very, very dark and a very painful memory, and no, I could not settle. The morning was difficult too. I shouted at my brother, which I really shouldn't have, and I cried, and I was in a lot of pain. I still remember the panic and the distress, like something strong was being torn in different directions inside of me, soon to burst out and rip my whole body. But I got there. I got to the manor house I had chosen to spend my birthday at, and to my friend's house to pick them up, and the ball gown was ready there to be worn. And still, there were moments that afternoon which were difficult. In fact, I ran away. And I cried, but I kind of came back, I think. And yeah, I headed out in my ball gown, walking up to the manor house with my faithful friend Dan, ready with his camera, and we took photos, and somehow everything melted away. And in those 2 hours of taking photos and exploring the manor house in my red ball gown, I actually felt so much peace. And now I remember it as an extraordinarily precious birthday, even though I still hold the memory of the night before. But that day, that afternoon, gave me this unbelievable sense of triumph and survival. There was one moment when a nurse that I had, who I really got along with, was really honest with me. The nurses would always, of course, tell you these positive things. Positive, positive, positive. But once, when I was having a very difficult time, the nurse just came straight out with it and said, "You will never wear your ball gown." I see now that he was just trying a different approach, but I was a little bit shocked, and it stuck with me because I was so used to "you are so brave" and all those kind of things. And you know what he said to me? He said, "You will never wear your ball gown." And I said, "Yes, I will." And he said, "No, you won't. You will be too weak. How are you meant to hold it up if you're like this?" Which was pretty crazy to hear. But I liked him, so I knew he wasn't trying to be mean, so I just fell silent and thought. I remember these funny little images sweeping into my head and turning round and round. Oh, what if I am too weak? What if I never get to wear my ball gown? I had bought it a whole year before in preparation for our school's prom, far before I knew I was going to fall ill, so it was just waiting there. At that moment, to tell the truth, I was screaming the place down. And I was throwing things around and being a little bit violent and saying, "Get away from me." So at that moment, I was actually cuddled on the floor when he said that, and he was looking down on me. The other nurses looked scared and worried and in a fluster, which I think probably just fed my loudness, but he remained unflustered. And I see now that he was just trying a different approach, and it worked. He just adopted a really stern, a really steady and in control voice and said that to me. I realised he was saying, "Your body is dying. Stop, be quiet and think." And it worked. I stopped. I was quiet, and I thought a little bit about my ball gown. Which leads me again to this day and my 16th, where I was out because I was deemed healthy enough. Not recovered, but healthy enough. And yes, it was in the back of my mind, especially towards the end of the photos when I realised how much I was enjoying this, that I had his words a little at the back of my mind. And I thought, ha! I wore my ball gown. I suppose actually that was pretty significant for me. What the male nurse said kind of marks a turning point. Because I remember when I got my diagnosis and the doctors said to my parents in the meeting that if we don't do anything now, you will only have 4 months left. You will not reach Christmas. I was actually happy and relieved. And I genuinely remember being filled with joy and peace. And that is not even an exaggeration. Because I wanted so badly for it all to be over. The body hurting, the mind hurting, the pain everywhere. Just absolutely everywhere. Hurting. But I also remember clearly the look on my parents' faces of absolute devastation. And then I remembered, in the real world, this coming few months is going to be hard. I feel a lot of different big emotions surrounding my birthday. Mostly shame. Shame of another year passing, of being older and surviving. Unfortunately, I still have voices in my head which are occasionally still very strong about how I shouldn't be here. And this is always exacerbated on my birthday, which makes me anxious. The thought that another year has passed since my 16th, and that first time I wore my red ball gown out to a manor house really sends my tummy into panic, as I begin questioning why I still feel so much pain. If yet another year has passed, creating what should be more distance from the past, and it does. Every year I improve and take great leaps and learn immense amounts, but the pain is still there. And this thought of another year has passed since I was ill, honestly, it makes my whole stomach and chest and mind tighten up and squeeze tight with a big overwhelming feeling which I feel I cannot move. Not unless I prove to myself that I have done enough with that year, that I have reached enough successes, ticked off enough goals, shown the world how strong and persevering I can be, and also found people to love. I find this enormous pressure, but also a strong desire to do something extraordinary with my life now that it has been given to me. And on the other hand, the voices make me feel ashamed that I am not gone. Also, that others didn't have a family by their side and I did. That others didn't have a whole church congregation praying for me and sending me cards, and sometimes gifts, and lots of prayers. On more than one occasion, I felt this strong feeling that God was clearly saying to me, lots and lots of people are praying for you, and I hear their prayers. I am listening to their prayers. But then others in the hospital didn't. They had no prayers. No one who came to visit them. No one who even wanted them to get better. No one who said, "I love you." Which are 3 very important words. This ball gown also represents to me a lot of romantic failures. Ways in which I have been totally self-destructive when it came to relationships and have literally just sabotaged the whole thing and been unbelievably blind, cruel and selfish in ways which actually directly involve this ball gown. But this means I simultaneously see, when I look at this ball gown, some of the most beautiful things about myself and some of the most utterly hideous. Which is wild, but somehow true. Because this ball gown reminds me of how incredibly brave I can be, how incredibly, wildly perseverant, full of strength, full of grit and power and determination, also full of gentleness and creativity and a love for beautiful things. Yet this ball gown also reminds me of some of the most evil things about me, of things I really, really shouldn't have said, of messes I never should have gotten into. I went through a phase of not being able to even look at a photo of myself in this ball gown or think about it, because it brought me back so much pain of how I had failed, how I had hurt people instead of giving them love. It reminded me of how I had failed that person, of how I had been less than truthful, of what I should have done compared to what I did do, of the selfishness and idiocy which I gave out as a little present to the people I was meant to love. So, this ball gown has a lot to it. And I am aware it sounds like I'm actually making this all up, that no one ball gown could possibly be mixed up and directly involved in pain and illness and mistakes and regret and shame and triumph. And yet, all of these things, this simple little ball gown has managed to wriggle itself into. Weirdly, at every major moment, it has somehow been there, mixed up in the mess. But I adore it. When I wear it, I still feel magic. And when Kitty Clark, a beautiful photographer, gave me these photos back after a photo shoot, I actually just sobbed and didn't reply and probably caused her major anxiety because this is not how we should treat photographers, by the way. If they have put their energy, time, skill, patience, practice, dedication to a gallery of photos, we must say thank you. Tell them just how much it means and how much we admire and adore their work. But unfortunately in that moment I just cried, because the bad things of this ball gown were pretty fresh and the painful memories were pretty close to my heart. But this birthday I was able to wear it, and I was anxious, really quite very anxious, but I did not sob, just about. And I enjoyed wearing it, just as it should be. My precious red ball gown. Before I say goodbye, I just wanted to quickly mention a promise to you. I want to promise you that if I ever make a video like this, in which certain topics are uncomfortable or potentially hurtful, I promise never to let it go without a trigger warning. Because above all, I want this to be a place where people can feel safe. A space on the internet where hopefully you will not feel not good enough, but treasured, not overwhelmed, but at peace. I want, if ever I make a video, that the consequence of that is something positive, never negative. I want you to feel good. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and bye.